if there is one thing hotter than hot girl summer for me, it's definitely lonely girl summer. So this is going to be, I hope, the first episode of like a long line, like a series, let's say, of videos where I dedicate a little amount of time during the day here back home with my family to just think and have all of my thoughts put in some words, because spending the summer in my hometown is kind of like a little bit, it's not as enticing as being with all of my friends, my uni friends, and etc. So it gets very lonely during the summer, and I'm trying to find some activities, and I hope that if there are people like looking at this, if there are my girlies looking at this, they know that it's not just because you're spending your summer alone or just a little bit of time by yourself that you cannot have fun even by yourself. So I don't know, if your girlies are in another city and you just stayed in your city, if your boyfriend is not here, if you don't have a boyfriend, like a lot of things that we are about to discuss are things that I think are very important, especially when you're a hottie, that you keep your imagination alive and stuff like that. So I'm going to try to be as concise as I can, and at the same time be able to deliver some of my experience. And also I wish that I'm going to be able to come back to these videos and be like, oh, my summer was actually cool, you know? So I don't have a microphone, so I'm going to try to speak as loud as possible. Okay, the subject of today is going to reunions with people that you don't know. So today, I mean a week from today, like a week ago, I have put myself in a little list on internet to be able to have access to this little convention called Café Philo. And the purpose of it is to reunite people together to discuss a philosophical subject. The philosophical subject was a subject, is like a subject that like all of the people around the table are deciding together. So what happened is that you are all sitting around this table. It's like a round table, you know? But the thing is that at round tables, you have like two hosts. Usually it's going to be two hosts or sometimes three, and they will discuss something important. Like usually it's going to be like an artist coming and discussing a subject that is very interesting, or is going to discuss their own work. But this time it's really about everybody having a piece of the cake. Like everybody is providing something and adding something to the conversation. So I have brought my notebook and I took notes of like every single one of the people that were discussing at the table, and also every single one of the topics that were brought to the table. And to do so, I was just hoping that I could be able to go back to my notes later on and be able to figure out like, oh, okay, this was the conversation that was happening. Such person was not agreeing with this argument, so let me just compare those. And like, you know, it's always nice to like write down your thoughts on somebody else's thoughts as well. And this is what I did. So today there were multiple topics brought to the table, and the way that it happened is you have one host, and this host is just a person trying to make the whole ambiance kind of manageable. We were only like 15 people at the round table, so it was really comfortable to talk. Everybody had time to discuss what they wanted to discuss. Everybody had time to just speak. Like we didn't have like a restriction on how long we had to talk. And it was very nice because, especially, mind you, I was by myself. I wasn't with a friend or something. So this is why I'm saying that it's very important when you're by yourself to not be scared to do stuff with yourself. It's not to feed into this whole new era of like, oh, people, you need to learn how to love being lonely. I don't want to feed into that delusion mindset of like, oh, you're better off by yourself. No, not at all. I have many friends. I have a plethora of friends. I can hang out with whoever I want, whenever I want, and I'm very lucky to be having this, and not everybody has that luck. So it's very important for me to say that I'm very grateful for the friends that I have and for the life that I have, and that not everybody has this. So have friends, do your life, be cool, be chill, go to the club, enjoy, dance, party, Queen era, but at the same time, know that when there is time needed to be by yourself, you need to be comfortable with that. And so being by myself, not having anybody with me, you kind of have like a little bit more freedom, especially depending on the person that you're going to hang out with. There are going to be some restrictions that you can put on yourself. You might not be able to fully develop your thoughts, especially if you know that the person you're going with is not specifically open to these kinds of conversation. Everybody has their relationships with people, and if you have a relationship with a person and that, I don't know, for example, you have forced your girlie to come with you to this thing and you don't know if she likes it or not, but she's just like, oh yeah, okay, let's hang out, then it's not gonna work, because you are not going to have time to really like put yourself in like this uncomfortable position of just like being by yourself and experimenting things by yourself. Even if it's not your thing, try new things, try out new things, just try new things. So the first step of the convention was everybody gets to, I had no idea. Mind you, I just came in and I had no idea of what it was going to be like. So the host is telling us that we all have to think about a philosophical idea. And the rule is we cannot bring up a famous name, like any philosopher, any writer, any famous person is forbidden. Mind you, I am a literary student. Like, as a student in University of Literature, I just had to step out of my comfort zone, because I feel like a lot of the times when you're like in literature, in humanities, whether it's philosophy, literature, and all that, history, all that stuff, we are very keen to mention names of very famous authors, people who have brought like something to the culture, because it gives us these authority arguments. And the purpose of this convention was to be able to have a full-on talk without relying on those very prominent figures. It's all about your own mind. And this host, she was telling us, if you think of a very famous thinking process that was brought out by a famous author, for example, if you're thinking about a phenomenon, if you're thinking about something specific, you can talk about it, but you have to not mention who it is from, and you have to actually appropriate it to yourself. I don't know if you get what I mean. So we had like many topics today, and I didn't propose any topic, like I did because it was my first time, so I was just like listening to everybody, but I was very, very happy to be there and also like to participate. So I just voted, and so there were 10 subjects on the table, so that's a lot, and I'm just going to read you the subject so you can have like a little idea of what was brought to the table and how incredible it is to be in a room full of people you don't know, like you have no idea who these people are. There are people from like all different types of ages, races, and also social backgrounds, and you can see it. You can have you can see that these people are not like you. They're all strangers. But I thought that the beauty of being there and being like, whoa, how did these people think of these questions? And when you are in a room full of all these thoughts, you're just like, there is something genuinely so attractive in getting out of your comfort zone. I don't know if I can say attractive, but there's something so enticing about not knowing and still going, if you get what I mean. But yeah, so the first subject that was brought to the table was, okay, I will have to translate this because it was in French. If life is suffering, would being, okay, let me put this into words. So if life is suffering, would you have to be a masochist to be happy? First topic. The second topic brought to the table was, what is our place? What is our relationship when it comes to the machines? So machines, robots, electronic devices. The third topic was, what is a good life in a philosophical point of view? The fourth topic was, how does freedom manages itself in society? I wouldn't know how to translate this as good in English because it's very specific. Also, the grammar in French is very different than the grammar in English, but yeah, how individual freedom can work in a society, basically. The fifth subject was, what are the limits when it comes to religious belief? Should there be limits when we're talking about religious beliefs? And I'm so sad because this subject didn't get picked, but I really loved that subject down to it. I really wanted to talk about this. But at the same time, the other topic I really wanted to talk about was chosen, so I was still happy. And I'm just going to say the ninth proposition because I had voted for this one as well. And it was, until what point can we push self-love? It's like, until what point can we go? What extent are we willing to go? What extremes are we willing to take when it comes to self-love? And that was very interesting, I think. But the topic that got chosen today was, if life... Hold on a second. Allô?
Allô, tu m'as appelé?
Oui, je t'ai appelé.
Ouais.
Est-ce que t'as un micro ici quelque part?
Un micro?
Ouais.
Pas du tout, non.
Ok, merci. Si jamais y a Mama et Rugi qui vont venir après.
Pourquoi?
Bah, à cause des trucs bientôt là.
Non, arrête de mentir.
Ah si, elles viennent.
Oh my god.
Voilà. Bye.
Ciao.
And so, the topic that got chosen today was, if life is suffering, would you have to be a masochist to be happy? And this topic got torn apart by people. I remember my answer to this was, many people were talking. I remember, for example, there is this woman. If you can see on my notes, I have written like this, and I have even put people's names, but I'm not gonna say their name, even though it doesn't really matter at this point. But I just have written their name and then 2 dots to put in perspective and to reread it later on and think about the whole conversation. But I have wrote basically a lot of key points, some key points from the conversation that was an hour long. And also I think it's so nice to still write down people's names, especially when you don't know them, because I felt this was a very good exercise for my brain to be okay, I don't know these people, but I'm still going to make the effort to remember their names. And I feel not a lot of people do this nowadays. And this is a trait that I've noticed in myself, is that whenever I'm with some friends outside and they present me to some other friends, I never really remember their names, because if there's so many people, especially because I just feel like my brain is lazy to remember, because I'm just thinking, oh, I'm probably not gonna see this person anymore, or even if I do see this person another time, like, I'm just relying on my friend to remind me of their names, you know? And I feel like this is why it's so important to get out of your comfort zone, because then your brain is more willing to make efforts to do other things. You know how they say that when you get out of your comfort zone and when you do certain different things, if you change just a tiny thing in your morning routine, for example, like instead of taking your phone right away, you go and like you do something a little bit more creative, or you go and do something more complicated for your brain. I don't know, if you decide to wake up and just go take a piece of paper and do like a mathematical problem, and you don't solve it, but you still try, it literally creates new pathways in your brain. And when I've learned that, I was like, am I willing to have some new neurons? I guess so. If it can prevent me to like being 40 and already having some Alzheimer's or something, like, I'm willing to do it, you know? I'm not saying that Alzheimer happens like so fast, so soon, but you know what I mean? Like, if it allows me to like have my brain as functional as it can, as creative as I can, I'm willing to do this kind of stuff, you know? And so I remember the host told us that we were going to enjoy some like 5 minutes to think about a subject and like write down our first thoughts on it. And I had started by talking about the term masochist, because for me the term masochist is something, it's a very colorful word. It's a very colorful word, especially for a subject like that, because when you say masochist, you're literally talking about, there's like a deep connotation on the word. So I was thinking about, oh, does this mean that you like inflicting pain on yourself, but it's also like you find pleasure in pain, you know what I mean? And so I just took some keywords in this phrase. So I was thinking about suffering, masochist, and happiness, you know? And I was thinking, what can I make of these three words? Whether or not I agree with the phrase or not, you know? And so I started with the term masochist because to me, it was very interesting to go from the beginning and to think that, okay, this sentence proposes that life is inevitably suffering. Like, you will find suffering in life. Everybody has a suffering tax to pay to be alive. This is how I saw it. And this means that if life is suffering, then does it mean that you have to subsequently enjoy the suffering to be happy? And for me, I decided to take the point of view of that word, masochist. And I said that to me, yes, if life is suffering, then you would have to be a masochist to find happiness. Because to me, becoming a masochist is not about just transforming yourself into somebody that likes the pains and sufferings that happen to you, you know, especially because the term suffering comes from, in French, we have this word subir, and it means something happening to you. It's something that you don't necessarily have control over, but it's something happening to you. And what was very interesting, is that to me, I kind of saw it as like, you decide to become a masochist in order to survive. I was kind of seeing this whole sentence as like kind of like survival type of thing. It's not that you actually find refuge or necessarily find pain to be enticing. You don't necessarily find suffering to be enticing. Nobody likes to suffer. Everybody just wants to be like, not everybody wants to be happy. This is one thing that was discussed in the whole table, is that it's not the end goal of everyone to be happy. There's one person that had said something very interesting that was like, maybe the purpose is not to find happiness, but maybe it's just to find meaning, especially when you think about, are people dying, when you think about all the suffering that happens in the world, other countries where some people are getting killed for no reason, you know. And so to me, I was like, maybe all of this stuff is just a way for us to, maybe like accepting all of this suffering is a way to just embrace the drawings around life, you know, the little bumps on the road. And especially because on a biological point of view, a woman talked about like the biological point of view, that like we couldn't really talk about suffering, especially if we focus on the natural way of life, which is we get born and then we die, and we are literally like some type of animal and just leaves, you know, like leaves of a flower. It's supposed to grow and then it's supposed to die, and this is literally all about it, and that we shouldn't be in this very manichaeist type of thinking of like good or bad, and that suffering is very good or bad type of thinking, you know. But yeah, there was like a lot of very interesting points that were made. And my point of view was really like to like change the focal point of whether or not it was about, okay, my purpose is to become happy, therefore, or kind of seeing like, oh, I am suffering, so I'm a masochist because I still want to live, you know, but rather I want to live, therefore I'm going to embrace all of the suffering that is happening to survive, as a way to survive. So my answer to this question was yes, in order to just live. To me, it was not in order to find happiness. For me, it was just in order to live. And it depends whether or not you conclude that happiness and life are two things that go together, you know. And this is something that was really argued during the convention. It was a very interesting convention. I don't know if I have like other points, but yeah, at the end of the convention there was a woman that said that she had heard the sentence somewhere, and she was saying, pain happen, suffering is a choice. And I feel like it's very interesting. So this is the thing that I did today to compensate the lonely days of summer. I think that there are going to be still some other lonely days, but I'm very keen and ready to explore and experience and see what I can do, especially in my hometown, because in my hometown I have never really been and done experiences like this. I feel like I've had a lot of time to do this in like a big city, the city where I study. But in my hometown, it's true that there are still activities, but it's more like a calm town, you know, it's more like countryside, you know, and you can still find some very cool things to do, even if you're in the countryside, even if you're by yourself. I mean, let's not be extreme. It depends where you are, what you do, especially because not everybody has the same means. This was for free, for example, so I went there for free and I just like registered and I went. But yeah, it depends on where you are. Like if you're in a country where there's like no food, and it's like a political complicated situation, of course you're not gonna have opportunities like this. But I feel like I'm very happy to be able to fully enjoy what I have and what I'm doing, especially because to me it's just important to like get out of my comfort zone and not just rot in bed and thinking that, oh, I'm just so keen to like go back to my city and just like study and stuff like this, like, and go party with my friends. Like, I feel like even in moments of desperation you can still find cool things to do. And so this was my little pep talk for today. So I hope that this is nice. But yeah, this little background is nice. I really enjoy it. So yeah, I hope I'm going to be here for like another episode, maybe like next week or something, but we'll see.